My name is Average Joe, and I'm a proud geek with expertise in movies, superheroes, and animation.
My name is Beef Pork Ribs. I'm a fine repository of esoteric knowledge, which I suppose most people would qualify as geeky. Though I dabble in many fandoms, my main areas of expertise are anime, movies, and Belgian comics, with a strong recent insurgency of D&D.
Our mission is to bring nerd and geek culture to the masses
by sticking it all under the microscope.
Welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast.
Movies, comics, graphic novels, TV, cartoons, animation, nerds or geeks, entertainment culture. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Pound. Nerds and geeks, come gather around the scene. Come and join us in the Bat Jar. Come and tune into Average Joe and his team. Lots of room here in the Bat Jar. When the newest nerdy news drops, these podcast pals put it under the scope. DC, Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, cinematic, multiverses, Mega Christmas, Grinch's franchise. Hear it on the Bat Jar, Nerdy Power.
Hello there, and welcome to the Bat Jar Podcast, where we put nerd and geek culture under the microscope.
And as every year, the microscope gets cheerier and cheerier. Although, actually, we're doing B-type, so it's a little cheerier than last year, but less cheery than the year before or something like that.
Yeah, this Christmas season just feels weird to me because I haven't been living at my own place, so I didn't do any Christmas decorating in my own home this year. I helped some other people decorate their houses, helped decorate their trees. And for the first time in my life, I'll be not at my parents' for Christmas morning. We're going to be spending Christmas at my brother Dan Hatton's house. So that's a big change for our family.
Yeah, I mean, it's... Oh, like your entire family's like your brother's hosting the family Christmas?
Yeah, the majority of our family. King Boo won't be able to make it till Boxing Day, but Christmas morning, basically everybody who's here will be at their house.
Oh, wow. That is a big thing. I remember the first Christmas that I wasn't with my family. It was a little weird because I was with my sisters-in-laws. There's but this year Christmas is gonna be pretty low key, just Mjolnir, Jam and I for Christmas itself, and then family in and around it.
So people listening to this might realize that I sound a little stuffy. I am getting over a cold, so I apologize if I sound less sultry than usual.
But we all know that he's got a voice that's been chosen to the prize-winning voice anyways, so after last week's episode, we know that, so, we won't hold it against him.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. So this episode will be going out on not Boxing Day, the 27th, so we'll be within the Christmas liturgical season.
Woo!
I think by that point, Hanukkah will be almost done, because it started on the 18th, or maybe it will be done by then. Anyway, I'll just say it now. Merry Christmas to everybody. If you don't celebrate Christmas, please receive my Merry Christmas as a glad tidings at this time of year.
Yeah, and I will... I'm sorry, it's just as soon as you said Merry Christmas, I almost instinctively said, "You filthy animal." Because,
Of course.
One has to, does not one. I haven't watched it yet. I watched... Well, no, that's not true. I watched the first, 10 minutes of it, but... I ended up watching The Grinch. I forgot how crazy that movie... The Jim Carrey one. I forgot how crazy that movie was.
I don't know if I've mentioned this in the show before, but it's a fun piece of trivia to know that the producers of the live-action Grinch hired a guy who teaches CIA agents how to survive torture to coach Jim Carrey on how to play the role of the Grinch.
Well, wasn't it specifically because of the suit that was...
Yes, because of the suit.
Felt like literally torture.
Because he was literally, no part of his actual skin was exposed. He was wearing contact lenses, prosthetics, fake teeth, the yak fur suits. I think he had, fake eyelashes.
Yeah, he definitely had fake eyelashes. It is crazy. But then again, Yeah.
He was able to channel
He
that
still, yeah,
rage.
he still managed, but he also still managed to perform, not just move about and say things. It was still, something iconic.
Now,
But
here's a question for you. I've been listening to some podcasts recently through iHeartRadio, or rather through the iHeartRadio network.
okay.
And to my annoyance, there's often advertisements for other podcasts that interrupt the show I'm actually listening to. And so
Uh-huh.
I hear these other people go on for like 30 to 60 seconds convincing you to listen to their podcast.
Yeah.
And so I started thinking, if we were part of a network where we got to advertise ourselves on other podcasts, like what would we say to convince people to listen to us?
Here's a story about a show. Sorry. The only iHeart radio podcast I know is Fake Doctors, Real Friends, which is the Scrubs rewatch show Donald Faison and Zach Braff have done. I don't know. You would probably just like play the clip from the beginning of our episodes where we present ourselves.
Yeah, I guess that kind of explains it. That's
Yeah,
the whole
it's the shtick,
point of that
right?
stinger, is to try and introduce the concept to
Yeah,
people who don't know the show.
and people would listen to our show because we wouldn't have a 30 seconds advertisement. It would just be like 10 seconds.
That's right. You get just pure Batchar content, no ads in this.
Yeah, you get just us, whether you like it or not. I mean, if you don't like it, you can just turn off the podcast because we our families don't depend on this, thankfully. I mean, for my part, honestly, I think you could carry a podcast. You have the kind of the passion for it, but you'd have to find a better co-host.
If Beeper, as of next month, it'll be 3 years that you've been. I think that you've officially taken the prize as longest serving co-host of the Batchar.
Oh, there you go. It proves that your standards have lowered.
But I think
not necessarily, but I do think, but there is a, like, especially over the last year, we have not lowered our standards, but changed a little bit of some of the priorities of the podcast, as both our lives have gotten kind of crazy, which,
well, I'll classify that as emphasizing quality over quantity.
Yeah, no, I know. It's a little strange sometimes though, because I know that was part of the reason why Pixel Patch left, was, for some of the same reasons that we are diminishing some of especially my involvement in doing things more frequently. But, but we do all change and get to new eras in our lives, and the podcast is still a part of it, and I like that, and it keeps us in touch as friends as well. So that's still exciting, but there are changes, and changes are good.
So longtime listeners of the show would know that I love Christmas, and we have found ways to talk about Christmas every year on the podcast, sometimes for several weeks at a time.
And 3 years listeners of the podcast will know that though I very much like Christmas, do not have the level of love most people do, and also didn't have as many like traditional, I don't know, like my family didn't really watch Christmas movies. We didn't do a lot of Christmas stuff other than midnight mass and food stuff that was very Christmassy, and some of our traditions around what we did for Christmas gifts, I guess, were also something important to us, but it wasn't the whole like build up to Christmas decorations, everything is going crazy for Christmas that a lot of people, including the average Joe, tend to have.
Woo! So throughout our 6 years of Batchar podcasting, we've done 12 episodes about Christmas, specifically different elements of Christmas media. And then if you include our episode about Hawkeye or Into the Spider-Verse, which are C-type Christmas products, then those would be classified. We'd be up to 14 episodes of Christmas stuff. So this is episode. If there was a subreddit of just Batchar Christmas episodes, this would be episode 15.
You don't know we don't have a subreddit?
In 89.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but I feel like that's also just kind of a normal thing for people to talk about Christmas a lot. It's a fun holiday, and I get a really long break because I'm a teacher, and I really enjoy it and really need it this year.
So way back in our first year, we spent an episode trying to break down different types of Christmas movies. And this was admittedly my idea initially, and Asian John just kind of went along with it and said, "All right, fine, these are the categories that we're trying to create here." We've done an entire episode breaking down C-type Christmas movies, and then we've also more generally talked about Christmas movies that are fit into the A-type. We've never specified a conversation around B-type Christmas films. So, from your recollection, Beeper, what would you say is the difference between an A and a B and a C-type Christmas movie?
So, A-type is where Christmas is central to the plot, and to the events. Therefore, the movie could not happen if it wasn't Christmas. That's A. Or is it C?
That's A.
It's A. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Then B.
To see if a movie's an A-type, it's like, can I describe the plot of the film without referencing Christmas?
Yeah, and then B-type is there is Christmas stuff in it, and it's explicitly Christmas, but it could technically still happen without it being Christmas. Right? And then C-type is just Christmas is randomly mentioned at some point.
Yeah, so the way to contrast an A and a C-type, it's like an A-type movie, you cannot describe the plot without mentioning Christmas. A C-type, you can describe the plot without mentioning Christmas. I mean, for example, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's set during the month of December leading up to Christmas. You could very easily describe the plot of that film without referencing Christmas.
Yeah.
But something like Four Christmases, where a couple have to go visit all of their families at Christmas, you'd have a hard time describing that film without mentioning Christmas at some point.
Yeah. And I think was that kind of why Die Hard falls into A category, because without the Christmas party, or because he's got the thing with his wife?
Well, no, Die Hard is, to me anyway, a C-type Christmas film, because the plot,
Yeah, okay.
that plot, you could describe the plot of Die Hard without it being Christmas. They just chose.
I guess it could just be an office party at any other time, and it would still work just as well.
Yes. An A-type, another thing that helps qualify something as an A-type is that the plot is central to Christmas, but also a character whose identity is associated with Christmas is a huge part of the film. So this is where your Rudolph, Frosty, elves, Santa Claus, Jesus, all these characters or people come into effect. And then a C-type, like people would say Die Hard just isn't a Christmas movie, or Iron Man 3 is not a Christmas movie. But we give the parameters of a C-type to acknowledge the fact that the writers, the producers, the director, they chose to set the film during Christmas for some purpose. And in the case of a film like Die Hard or Black Christmas, it creates like a contrast between what you're watching and what's happening in the background in terms of like the Christmas decorations and stuff.
Right. Okay. And then B-type.
And before we get into the B types, just to acknowledge there are the D types. These are the films that have nothing to do with Christmas, but for some reason people watch at Christmas time. So this is where the Sound of Music and the Lord of the Rings come in.
I mean, the Lord of the Rings has an old man with a beard, elves. I can't remember. There's like somebody made this description of like why Lord of the Rings is actually the best Christmas movie. And it was like, well, you want your Christmas movie to have an old man with a beard. You want it to have this and that. And I was like, and all of those things were found in Lord of the Rings, and I thought it was a funny one. Although I don't know that many people who watch Lord of the Rings around Christmas. Like, I don't know. I know we did one year, like the year we got Lord of the Rings for Christmas, we immediately watched Fellowship, and then watched the next two afterwards. But I've been doing it more as a New Year's thing personally.
Yeah, I know our friend Minty Python, his family watches Lord of the Rings at Christmas every year, so I
Okay.
definitely know it's a thing people do. I think because that's the films were released originally in December, so
Oh, okay.
that's the time for the rewatch.
So would that like make all the other Harry Potter movies potentially, and Star Wars, I guess, maybe, other than the Star Wars Christmas special, which I probably less people watch around Christmas than the actual Star Wars movies?
Yes. So as a way to help frame our conversation, I'm going to classify 3 Christmas shows and movies I watched this year for the first time. So the first thing, I watched The Santa Clauses, the limited series on Disney Plus, which is a continuation of the Tim Allen Santa Claus
Right,
franchise.
yeah.
That is very much an A type because it's about a guy who is Santa Claus, and it's all about Christmas spirit and the story doesn't exist without Christmas. So that was very much an A type. It's going to get a second season, so I'm excited for that.
Of course you are. It's a Christmas thing.
I went to the theaters to see the film Violent Night. Did you hear about this one, Beeper?
I did not.
So David Harbour plays Santa Claus. You know who David Harbour is?
Probably, but for the audience, remind me.
He's the cop from Stranger Things and the
yeah.
Russian dad from Black Widow.
Yeah. Okay.
So he's Santa Claus, and he happens upon a house that is being robbed on Christmas Eve, and so it becomes like Die Hard, except Santa has to take out all these terrorists who are attacking this rich family.
Okay.
And it's rated R.
Well, I figured that much. Oh, that sounds almost as bad as Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. But that's a movie nobody should ever watch unless they have a lot of friends who watch bad movies with them.
If it weren't for the fact that if it was just a guy living this event on Christmas Eve, I would say this is a C type. But because it's Santa Claus that this is happening to, it's an A type.
Okay.
And then I watched Spirited, which is a new movie from Apple TV Plus that stars Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds. Have you seen this advertised at all?
I have not.
So Will Ferrell plays the ghost of Christmas Present, and after 200 years of fulfilling this role where they do the Christmas haunt every year to a new person, he decides he's going to try and make a bigger impact in the world by going after somebody who's labeled unredeemable. And that's Ryan Reynolds, who's this media mogul who makes a living off of turning people against each other and creating a toxic hate culture on the internet.
Okay. I thought for a second it was going to be Ryan Reynolds as himself.
I would say this is a B type because while he's the ghost of Christmas Present and it's all about something that happens on Christmas Eve, it does follow a lot of the same story beats as A Christmas Carol, and it is mostly about just these people's lives. Christmas plays into the movie at the beginning and the end, but for the most part, it's a story that could be told without the trappings of Christmas.
Okay.
Which now kind of, helps us segue into this conversation about B-type Christmas movies, which I will admit, it's a little nebulous. Some of the movies we're going to talk about, it's going to be hard to classify them if they actually fit into the B-type or not.
So, by that rationale, would A Christmas Carol also be a B type?
Yes, and that's probably the big one to start with.
Okay.
A Christmas Carol and all its variations.
Including Muppets Christmas Carol.
Including Muppets Christmas Carol, which people love.
I have seen that movie.
Arguably, it's a B-type Christmas movie because most of the screen time is associated with following Scrooge's life and seeing what the people around him, seeing the impact he's left on people. The fact that it begins that the haunting happens on Christmas Eve and that he wakes up Christmas morning. You can make a case that could just happen at any given night of the year. It doesn't have to necessarily be Christmas.
Yeah, okay. Again, like you said, it's a bit nebulous, especially with a case like that one. But yeah, I suppose it is. it isn't directly the magic of Christmas or the Christmas spirit that gets him on board. It is seeing the repercussions of his actions.
Like, could you describe the plot of A Christmas Carol without referencing Christmas?
Yes, I suppose you could.
But then this is why it becomes a B type and not a C type, because Christmas becomes, it is part of the story. It's not like it's not a C type where the plot is tangentially associated with Christmas. Like, A Christmas Carol is enhanced by the fact that it takes place around Christmas, and a lot of the notions that we have about Christmas as a holiday actually stem from the impact of A Christmas Carol. So clearly, life has imitated art with this.
So we got a list, right? Because I remember when we talked about this, I said I could not think of many.
Yes, and when I was coming up with the list, it's a lot of older films. So it made me realize that maybe this is actually something that we just don't see a lot of anymore. Maybe
Well, I think
as we've gotten more into the world of making Christmas, like things that are explicitly Christmas movies, that there's less need for films that kind of touch on Christmas, but it's not the central focus.
Well, I think it might also partially have to do with the fact that Christmas has become a cultural phenomenon rather than a more religious. Because I do think some of the partially why some of the older movies tend to have that type of movie is that there were a lot like Hollywood made movies assuming everybody who was going to watch them in America was Christian, right? Like there was kind of this baseline assumption there that so when you made a movie around Christmas, it was very much Christmas as a religious holiday rather than, you know, a magical time for goodwill towards men, right? And I'm not, you know, for better or for worse, that's what Christmas has become, especially in media, is more of a peace and love kind of thing rather than, you know, a strictly Christian idea. But it wasn't, and because you do have a lot more, you know, random references to Christianity and to religious holidays in older movies, because again, there was kind of like the baseline assumption that yeah, everybody knows what this is and agrees with this and follows it. So I think that might also kind of play into it. Both the fact that Christmas wasn't commercialized yet or as commercialized yet, but also that just generally speaking, people tended to be more accepting of blatant Christian religiousness in movies.
Yeah. Home Alone and Home Alone 2, I think I've flip-flopped on these ones before. I'm pretty sure when we did an episode on Home Alone, I said they were A types because I'm like, they went out of their way to set these films during Christmas and they tie Christmas into the story. But now that I think about it more, you could very well describe the plot of at least the first and the second Home Alone without really explicitly referencing Christmas. You could say, you know,
I think the
kids.
first one more so than the second, because the second they do add more things. Like the second is in New York, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do add more things that are kind of Christmassy and starts to be more important.
Right. Like the toy
But
store.
yeah, but the first one is definitely because you know because you also do, and I think that's part of the reason why it's so nebulous is you do get occasions where like, well, is it like is Christmas central or is capitalism central, for example? Like, you know, the fact that you wanted to get a toy for your kid but then learn a lesson, right? So like Jingle All the Way, is it an A-type movie? Because it doesn't actually follow somebody who is a Christmas person, right?
No, but it's all about the pursuit of the Christmas present.
Yes. And again, is that present really that important? And like the movie does frame a lot of things around Christmas, especially like, you know, one of the best fight scenes ever put on film. With the the warehouse full of Santa Clauses fighting Arnold Schwarzenegger. But it is, you could probably make an argument that, like, well, it could just be that this guy is a bad husband and father and wanted to get a toy for his kid, and that toy was sold out because it was very popular.
Now, have you ever watched A Christmas Story?
I have watched A Christmas Story.
That arguably is a beat, even though Christmas is in the title. Most, I mean,
well, so is A Christmas Carol. So
yes, but arguably most of A Christmas Story, and what I've always appreciated about it is this adult kind of reflecting on just their childhood. The pursuit of the Christmas present, I suppose, is like a driving force, but I don't know if is that the main plot, like him trying to get this gun?
I mean, he talks about it more than anything else, but whether it's actually what he does the most, and yeah, it's probably an arguable one. I could see that one just being a B.
Yeah, like I'm trying to be really nitpicky here. It's like I'm just trying to think. I'm breaking the movie scene by scene. It's like how many scenes are explicitly Christmassy versus just 1940s Chicago nostalgia.
And that's also where you kind of have to draw the line, or the separation between Christmas and winter, right? Because there's a lot of things that are very wintry but aren't strictly Christmas. Like, I'm trying to remember if like Galley Took happens during Christmas or just during winter.
Yeah.
You ever seen that movie?
No, I don't think I have.
It's a story about a bunch of kids in Quebec that have massive snow fort fight, and then eventually one of the kids they gets out of hand, and one of the kids dies in a collapsed snow fort or something. Can't remember if he actually dies or they think he's dead. It's been a really long time, but it's a weird movie. It's kind of like almost Lord of the Fly-ish levels of descendants into madness from kids in snow forts.
Speaking of descendants into madness, Home Alone 3 is a C type because it's like set after Christmas and it doesn't really play into the plot at all. But Home Sweet Home Alone, the one we watched last year, would you say that's a...
Oh god.
Is that a B type?
I'm
trying to remember the plot. I remember that they're new to the neighborhood. He gets left at home alone. And then
I mostly just remember, I mean, it's definitely not an A type, but I think that one almost is a C type, because, like, man, I don't even, like, what I mostly remember is massively nitpicking this movie for why the villains were villains and why they existed and why the conflict even happened to begin with. Right. Because it made no sense. But yeah, I think it might be it might fit as a B type though, because there were actually, no, I feel it. There were enough things around Christmas, and they tried to have like the kind of heartfelt scene that the first Home Alone movie had. It didn't work quite as well, and they did like invite each other over to do things afterwards. Like they became family friends. So maybe
this might be super nitpicky.
I'll say it is.
Okay. Now movies like
makes no sense.
Movies like Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, where there's like a scene where it's Christmas and Santa's there. Is that one scene enough to qualify the film as a B-type Christmas movie?
No. Because first off, it's not Christmas.
It isn't? I thought that was the whole point.
No, Santa just happens to have finally been unleashed because it was winter, not Christmas, for thousands of years. I'm pretty sure it's not actually Christmas.
Right.
Right? Because, I mean, honestly, if you're going to go with a religious feast, it's more Easter than anything else, because in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, that literally is the Easter equivalent story from Narnia. So I'd say that's definitely not a B type personally.
Now, because of the Harry Potter movies, they often cover a year in the life of, their time at Hogwarts. There are several of the Harry Potter films that have scenes or sequences set during Christmas. but they also have scenes set during like Halloween and other holidays of the year. So I remember, I think it's in the first one, he gets the invisibility cloak as a Christmas gift, and he goes sneaking around the restricted section. I think there's another one where he's at the Weasleys for Christmas and they get attacked or something. So it's like, are those pivotal moments in the story that just happen to be on Christmas? Like, it's like a C-type Christmas event within a larger film.
Honestly, I'd probably give them a D type personally, but
Well, no, D types have nothing to do with, like,
oh yeah, that's true. It has nothing to do with, yeah. So I guess it's C. But
can it be a C within a B? Like it's a C-type segment, and we just would classify as a B-type movie.
No, I think it's still a C-type movie. Because winter is seldom actually, or Christmas as the holiday is seldom actually instrumental to the plot in any way.
One of the favorite films that I had as a kid is this one called Jack Frost. It's I know there's several movies called Jack Frost. So just to be clear, this is the one where Michael Keaton turns into a snowman.
Oh, okay.
Have you seen that one?
No, I have not. I thought you were maybe talking about the animated, the old cartoon Jack Frost, which is terrifying.
No, this is a live action film where Michael Keaton plays a dad who dies on Christmas, and then a year later comes back to life as a snowman and gets like a second chance to be a father to his son.
But as a snowman.
So again, Christmas plays an important part in the start of the movie and then at the end, but most of the story is just the wacky adventures of this kid and his snowman dad.
Yeah. That's... Again, I think that's more just a winter movie, but that we associate with Christmas because...
Well, again, Christmas comes into effect at the end. Like I think they explain that it's Christmas magic that has allowed for all this to happen. And like the first scene of the movie, he's going off, like it's his last day of school before Christmas break.
Yeah, but I still think that only qualifies as a C-type.
What?
I don't know, like, you could describe the plot of the movie without mentioning Christmas, and, like, does it have to be Christmas? Like, I guess it's the Christmas magic, but... Well, wait,
yeah, I guess you're right.
Do they explicitly say it is Christmas magic, or it's just, like, the magic of a wish that his kid makes?
I can't really remember the specifics of it now.
So I guess if they say explicitly it's Christmas magic, then maybe you could make the point for a B-type movie.
Yeah, I guess because the events leading up to his father's death, it's all about how he's not spending Christmas with his family.
Okay.
So I would lean to it being
it's sounding more and more like Jingle All the Way the more you keep talking.
I think that's just the typical plot for Christmas movies is parents not spending enough time with their kids.
Yeah, I suppose.
I just watched Deck the Halls last night with Danny DeVito and Matthew Broderick, and clearly an A-type Christmas movie, but again, parents being negligent to their children. All right, so the other examples I have here, again, these are some of the oldest films on the list. First of all, Little Women. I have never seen any version of Little Women, but I understand that there's parts of the story.
I read the book when I was younger.
There's parts of the story that are set at Christmas or like at different Christmases. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, but again, it's very similar to the Harry Potter movies. Like, I think there are significant scenes that happen around Christmas, but it is similar to the Harry Potter movie where like this just happens over several years. Like it's the entire childhood of these girls, right? So obviously Christmas is going to happen a few times in it.
All right. Well, Libra the Book Lady commented in our group chat saying that she would consider them B types because Christmas, I guess, is a huge part of their story. Having not read or watched any of it, I'm kind of inclined to go along with whatever she thinks.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, because I think the balls happen around Christmas, and the balls are definitely very significant events in their lives, so...
Oh, yeah, Harry Potter, the Yule Ball, that's a big thing in the fourth book/movie.
Goblet of Fire?
Yeah,
Yes. So I would say that one probably
B-type.
fits there.
Okay. We're getting somewhere here. And then, have you ever heard of the film Going My Way
Of course.
and its sequel, The Bells of St. Mary's?
Yes, I have. It wasn't a specific Christmas thing, I don't think that we did, but that we watched them. But um, like my mom is a fan of Bing Crosby, or people in her family were fans of Bing Crosby. I don't know if it was her necessarily. There was a lot of things that like my mom has a lot of older siblings, but yeah. So I've seen both Going My Way and Bells of St. Mary's several times.
So those ones, from my recollection, are, again, the plot is mostly unrelated to Christmas, but then Christmas is like a factor. I think for one of them,
I
it's at the
mean,
end.
mostly because the main character is a priest.
Yes.
So yeah, it is a big deal because he's a priest, and Christmas is a big deal if you're Catholic. So I think there's part of that, but
Is it Going My Way or St. Mary's that ends with like the juvenile delinquents that he's formed into a choir?
that oh shoot, I think is Bells of St. Mary's.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Because that's
But
the one with Ingrid Bergman as the
none. Yeah.
the nun. Yeah.
But again, this is a perfect example of what a B-type is. It's a movie where the plot generally is not focused on Christmas, but then it becomes very important at a certain point.
Yeah, that's true.
Another Bing Crosby movie, I don't know if it really relates to, it's called Holiday Inn. Have you heard of Holiday Inn before?
That one I have not.
I think it's a really silly idea for a movie. The idea is that there's a hotel that's only open on holidays.
Oh,
And
I see.
every time it's open, there's like a dance part, like a
Oh, and it's Holiday INN.
yeah. And the idea is that Bing Crosby plays an entertainer who comes up with new songs for every holiday.
Okay.
And this is where the song White Christmas debuted, was for this film, which came out in like the early 40s. So there's technically a Christmas scene, but there's also like a President's Day scene and there's the scenes for all the holidays. So I'm like, is this too small a slice of the pie to be considered a Christmas film?
So it's kind of like if Nightmare Before Christmas, they went through all the doors instead of just being focused on the two holidays, right?
Yeah, I mean, again, with The Nightmare Before Christmas, I feel like you would have a hard time describing the plot of that film without
Oh yeah,
referencing
no, for sure.
Christmas.
But if they had made the choice to make Jack Skellington go through all the doors, and then he'd only spend some time in the Christmas place, it would be kind of that vibe.
Yeah, because then the story would be more split up between different, like, and maybe we're trying to get at what percentage
So
of the plot.
if something was an anthology series that had a Christmas part, would that still be a B type?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm getting it down to what percentage of the film needs to be associated with Christmas for it to.
Oh, but I think it's not just a percentage, it's also like an important part, right? So how
Right.
important was it?
Like, continue on Bing Crosby, White Christmas. Very little of that movie is actually about Christmas. Most of it is about these two war buddies who become entertainers, and they end up at this lodge owned by their former commanding officer who's like going bankrupt, and they come up with this whole scheme to help him make money, and it just happens to end on Christmas Eve with this big Christmas pageant, which most of the songs in that pageant we have to sit through aren't even Christmassy.
Yeah, but I guess again, it does end on Christmas. But I feel like that's also a lot of the B type movie end on Christmas, or just decide that Christmas is going to be more important because, like, Christmas is more of a plot device than an actual important part of it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, a lot of them start with Christmas as well. Like White Christmas, it does start with them on Christmas Eve in the war.
Yeah. Framed around Christmas.
Yeah. Of all those Bing Crosby movies, do you have a personal favorite?
Bells of St. Mary's.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's a yeah, it's a good like it is a solid movie. And I just I'm always entertained at the idea of like there was this kind of idea that they were trying to make Ingrid Bergman not appear to be, a beautiful actress that was kind of a leading lady of Hollywood just by putting her in a nun habit, which was kind of a strange idea, but also the movie is a solid movie overall.
So we're gonna finish with a creme de la creme,
Ooh,
a movie that a lot of people would say is the best Christmas movie out there. It's a
but that is
Wonderful
only a
Life.
B type. Oh, yeah. That one that one even hovers on D type.
D type, as in like has nothing to do with Christmas.
Well, more like isn't really a Christmas movie, but people watch it around Christmas.
Well, again, there's a way you could describe the plot of this film that references Christmas because it's on Christmas Eve that he has this experience.
Yeah.
But I would again argue if you look at the
But exactly like the I feel like it falls in the same category as Christmas Carol, where it's like, well, but it could have happened at any other time during the Depression.
and this is not any like disrespect or
Yeah,
throwing
we've never
shade. Like it's
claimed
an
that.
excellent movie.
Yeah, B type movies are worse. Some of them are, but and I think we also like there are movies that I think just don't. There are a lot of A type movies that are awful. Actually, there's probably more A type Christmas movies that are awful than B types. I would say probably
Yeah.
because there are just so many bad Christmas movies.
Yeah, and something like It's a Wonderful Life, like to me, those are the kind of movies that necessitate the need for a B type Christmas movie because, again, most of the story is just the life of George Bailey. It has, and I feel like you could almost rework the script to not reference Christmas, but then again,
But it would
the
lose something.
sentimentality and the family, like all those elements of Christmas kind of get wrapped up, no pun intended, in the beginning of the film and the finale.
And end up just having a very big influence on it overall.
Now, as we've been discussing what
Oh, sorry, speaking of bad A-type movie, I don't know if I mentioned this year that I hate Elf, and I have to do it every year. Mostly that if Mjolnir listens to the podcast, she can get mad at me.
I mean, is there a way to classify Elf as a B type? It's, I guess, because he is an elf.
The central character is one of Santa's elf.
Yeah,
No,
okay.
you really can't. It's 100% an A-type movie.
Right. As we've been discussing what we confirm as B types, are there any other films that come to mind? It's like, oh yeah, I guess that counts as a B type as well.
I was trying to think of like classic Christmas movies, but again, we didn't watch a lot of Christmas movies, so it's hard for me to come up with a lot of them. And we've touched on most of the major ones, so I don't think so.
Like Miracle on 34th Street. This is another one I kind of struggle with because if you ignore the fact that the main character is someone who believes to be Santa Claus, most of that movie is just about Macy's and Gimbals being in competition with each other and this girl who doesn't believe in anything fantastical.
But he is confirmed to be Santa, right? So,
well, he's proven in a trial, or not a trial, but he's proven through a hearing that to be declared to be Santa Claus. I suppose as long as we include that it's about a Christmas character in the description of an A type, then it would count as an A type.
although it reminds me of this old like rubber hose animation era cartoon about this guy who just sees this. I think it was either set or happened during the recession, and it was just this guy like saw this orphanage where they got nothing from Santa, and he just starts makeshifting a bunch of Christmas presents randomly from like household items and makes it into a Christmas. There's a nice song in it. It's like Christmas comes only once a year. Now it's here. Now it's here. Fa la 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 la. It was, I don't know, but technically he isn't actually Santa Claus, but to those kids he is Santa Claus. So is it? It's almost a situation like that where it might be a B type. But again, this is an animation short, not a movie, and I don't expect anybody from the terrible description I've given to recognize it or know it. But you know,
Well, I had brought up Klaus last time. Again, if you argue that Klaus is the main character, I know he's the title character, then you'd say, well, it's a Santa origin movie, so therefore it's an A type. But if you look at it as the postman is the main character, then it really is mostly not about Christmas.
yeah, because again, I think B type because it culminates with Christmas. If you don't, but the thing is that the movie is still framed as being an origin story for Santa Claus. So even though he's not necessarily the main character, I still think it's hard to argue against it being an A type.
So then maybe we need to change the definition then. Maybe saying that just because a film is about a Christmas character, like, does that really necessarily automatically make it an A type? Because something like Klaus or even Elf, the plot is again mostly about other things, and Christmas comes into the play at some point.
Yeah, but then we're really limiting ourselves on what is an A type, right? Like,
well, it's a film where you can't, like, there's no way to describe the plot without Christmas.
yeah, but even is it because if you say you can't describe it without Christmas, is it Christmas Day or Christmas lore? Because there's no way to really explain that Klaus is a Santa Claus origin story without talking about Santa Claus, and therefore you have to get into Santa Claus, Santa lore, which is a Christmas thing, right? Kind of like how Elf. Well, if you don't talk about Santa's elves, you can't actually describe the plot, right? So it's not Christmas Day that you have to mention, but you do need to mention Christmas lore. And again, I think this comes back to our thing about like why they used to make more B-type movies and they don't anymore is because there wasn't, this level of Christmas lore that there is today.
Also, I think just the idea of a Christmas movie is so much more commonplace than it was like in the 1940s.
Yeah, because and I think it is like you talked about the B movies, but the B type movies being kind of part of what the reason why we have A types, and I think in a very real way, a lot of those classic movies are the reason why we now have a category of movie which we call Christmas movies is because those movies kind of did it first, right?
Yeah. And nowadays we even within A, B, and C, there's kind of like subtypes, like the Hallmark Christmas movies or the Netflix Christmas movies or
yeah, but at that point you're just naming companies. Like I know the Hallmark kind of has this a reputation. I saw a good meme the other day that researchers think that Hallmark researchers think they're only a year or two away from creating a second plot for their movies, which I thought was
hey,
funny
I watched
meme.
one today. It was about Hanukkah, or it was about a girl who was adopted thinking she was Italian and then found out she was half Jewish, and then basically meets her biological mother and learns to celebrate Hanukkah. And Ben Savage from Boy Meets World played the love interest.
Oh, okay.
I wish I could remember what it was called, but I don't.
I'm sure
Anyway,
if you Googled Hallmark movie about half Jewish, half Italian girl, you could probably find it.
yeah. Anyway, as we're wrapping up here, Beeper, would you say you have a favorite B-type Christmas movie?
Didn't I say Bells of St.
Well,
Mary's?
you said that was your favorite of the Bing Crosby ones, but
Uh,
because there's a lot of good ones in
yeah, if
the
we're, you
even
know
in our
what,
discussion.
going to say, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna stick with it, with Bells of St. Mary's. Because of all the movies we talked about, I think it's the one I have most of an emotional attachment to.
Mm. I mean, if it's the one I have the most emotional attachment to, the ending in Jack Frost always makes me cry. But I would, I would be,
Remiss to say it's the best movie.
yeah, I would to choose it over It's a Wonderful Life. I don't think my father would ever forgive me.
Yeah.
So there you go. That has been our conversation about B-type Christmas movies. Again,
They're the
just
reason for the rest of them.
yes,
And as thus
and
deserve your respect.
and just to clarify this, they're not like B movies from like the 50s. We're not saying they're bad or that they're lower quality.
Or that, like the B movie, they are terrible.
Yes. It's more so it's like the A is at the top because it's the most related to Christmas, and then B is the category of movie where it's like kind of associated with Christmas, and then the C type is the one where it's like background only references to Christmas, and then D types are no references to Christmas at all, but it's still watched at Christmas time.
Which, again, I think is emblematic. Like, you know, I don't think there would have been that kind of a classification needed or even possible when a lot of the movies we talked about today were made. So that kind of goes in to be like, yeah, we, you know, hot take here, we've over commercialized Christmas. Oh wait, no, that's the coldest take there is. But and I think the movie industry does kind of have that going with it.
So, yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone. If you
And
celebrate other
tomorrow's midnight.
holidays,
Oh, sorry.
happy holidays. And yeah, let us know what your favorite B-type Christmas movies are.
May your dreams. Wait. Is it your dreams? No. May your what be merry and bright? Is it dreams? I'm trying to remember the end of White Christmas.
Yeah. May your dreams be merry and bright.
Okay,
and
it
may
is
all your
dreams.
Christmases be white. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we have another message from Dante DeLuca.
Ooh, has he been keeping up with us and watching?
I just listened to an episode in which Dr. What said that Pride and Prejudice should be in the bat jar, but refused to put it forward as a suggestion himself. If no one put it forward since then, I will forward it now. Pride and Prejudice.
I think we covered Jane Austen, though, right?
No, we have not.
No, we didn't cover just Jane Austen generally.
I mean, we might have brought her up at some point, but we certainly haven't had an episode about her.
Oh, is that still nerd and geek culture? I mean, deep cut literature. Well, it's not that deep cut, but like, I guess we've defined nerd and geek enough that, especially with Lyra the Book Lady appearing often enough, we can go with like literature geek.
But you also have to include a mention of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries and Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
Oh, I mean, of course, as different iterations. Not an expert on those ones, but I'd be down to put that in the bat jar. But if we do that, we should also think of some other. I mean, it's been suggested by somebody who's not the host, so I'm not going to suggest other things that I want to put in to talk about.
Listen, we're more than happy to have.
Sci-fi is one of them.
Yeah, we've got all the things that Dante suggested last time, so we've got even more we can throw in there now.
Oh, yeah. So why not throw Pride and Prejudice, or maybe just Jane Austen generally? I think, because, although, do you want to make a series and put like all of the put Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility,
It's a lot of reading.
Persuasion, all of them in, or it's just watching the BBC miniseries. They're pretty good.
If you want to reach the show, you can send us an email at
batjarpodcast@gmail.com.
or you can tweet us at
The Bat Cookie Jar.
You can find the Bat Jar Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube, because we got a channel. Share our posts on Facebook, write reviews, give our shows a rating. This will help all people join us inside the Bat Jar, and we appreciate it dearly.
So this is normally when we would go inside the Bat Jar to pull out our topic for our next episode, but our next episode will be the first one to come out in 2023. And as is tradition, we need to reflect on all the comic book films that were released in theaters in 2022 before we go any farther into the year.
All 3 of them?
There were, I'll have you know, I've been working on the spreadsheet. There's about 14.
Oh, nice.
Because again, we're defining a comic book film as a movie that was released in theaters for at least 2 nights. And it has to be an adaptation of a source material that's a comic book. So this there's like 3 or 4 anime films.
All right, yeah.
That qualify for this, and then there's several Marvel and DC. But sadly, no like obscure comic book films that came out in theaters this year. That
they didn't have another Smurf movie or
no Smurfs, or like in 2019, for example, there was The Kitchen, which was like based on like a Vertigo comic, or Bloodshot or Bloodsport or whatever that one with Vin Diesel was.
No, yeah. Wait, Bloodsport is a Van Damme flick.
Then is Bloodshot.
Okay.
So we're gonna, in our next episode, apply the Bat Jar system to the 2022 comic book films and see which comes out on top. I hope it's the Batman, but I can't guarantee that.
Oh. Yeah. Well, that will also depend on the rating of the Bat Jar community.
Yes, and then Beeper, I feel like there were several of the films you hadn't seen at the time of our recording the episodes about them, so I'll send you the list and you can tell me if you've seen any more of them since then.
Probably not, but I'm willing to do some research into it.
So until our next episode, we'll see you guys next year in 2023. And until that time, I'm Average Joe.
I'm Beef Pork Ribs.
Catch you on the flip side.
Merry 2023. And then have babies.